Chapter 9. The Escape. Haley's hands were bare of weapons or equipment, and time was running out. The clock of doom was already ticking. Katafi's terrorists would be back for them very soon, and that would mean certain death for the two snake men, and the total failure of the Outer Heaven mission. What was Haley to do? His rigorous Snake Man training had taught Solid Snake ways in which he could create whatever he needed from his immediate environment. He looked around him. What was there in this bare cell that he could use? Haley concentrated, visualizing possible escape scenarios. One piece of luck gave Haley the slightest edge. Along with the two key cards, the terrorists had missed the little book of matches that Justin had found in the truck. Now Solid Snake was careful with them. He could at least have some illumination in this dark cell, and maybe the matches would even be more useful than just shedding light, because although the cell was sealed tightly, Haley thought he could feel the merest whisper of cold air seeping from outside. Somewhere there must be a crack in the cell wall. Lighting a match, he held it up as long as he could before it burned his fingers. Yes, there was a thin trickle of cold air coming in from somewhere outside the cell. The flame was flickering in only one direction. Haley lit up another match, and held this one somewhat lower down, next to the wall. The little match head of fire told him the air was flowing from that direction. With the third match burning, Solid Snake got down on his hands and knees and looked intently. He had to find the airflow before he used the book of matches up completely. Before the match burned out, Haley's hands found the small gust of air, and his eyes detected the beginning of a crack in the wall, very close to the floor. He got down on his stomach, as close to the wall as he could, and inspected, feeling the wall carefully with his fingers. And yes, there was a fault in the masonry, a tiny crack in the wall, just beginning to break through to the other side. Now, if he could only locate the weakest point in the fault. Solid Snake's fingers felt around until they touched the softest part. He felt the masonry beginning to crumble a little under his touch. Satisfied, Justin Haley sat back on his haunches. "Hold tight, Gray Fox," he said. "Keep it together, and don't go dying on me now. I think maybe I see a way to get us out of here." Reaching over to where he dropped his blindfold, where he turned it off, Solid Snake picked it up and folded the greasy cloth into 3 thicknesses. He wrapped the wad tightly around the knuckles of his right hand and made a strong fist. He stood up and squared his shoulders. Then, taking a deep breath and letting it out again in a tiger's roar, Haley ran towards the wall at top speed. At the last moment, he dropped down and aimed a karate punch with his wrapped fist straight at the center of the crack in the masonry, at the very heart of its weakest spot. Instantly, the bricks and mortars gave way, and a hole opened in the cell wall. Scratching with his bare hands, Haley enlarged the hole. He had to work fast. The terrorists would be back any moment now. At last, the hole was large enough for a man to pass through. Gently, Justin Haley lifted the weak Gray Fox in his arms, as though the big man were a child, and carried him to the hole, pushing him through to the other side of the cell wall. Then Solid Snake squeezed through the hole and stood up, brushing mortar and brick dust off his camos. Now they were free. But Gray Fox was too weak to stand, and Solid Snake was without a weapon. He would have to stash his squad leader in some relatively safe place and make an effort to recapture his weapons and other gear, or else find new ones. He had already lost valuable time. Gray Fox said he had less than an hour to get to Metal Gear and disarm him. Because he'd been brought there blindfolded, and because his cell had been so well hidden, Haley had no idea what part of Outer Heaven he was in now. Would either of his key cards work here? There was a small door behind one of the columns that held up the ceiling, and Haley tried keycard 1 on the lock. No go. The lock wouldn't budge. Keycard 2. He heard a click. All right. This one got the door open. The room was empty. No prisoners. No equipment. It was possible that Gray Fox would be as safe here as anywhere else in the compound. "I'll be back for you as soon as I can," Haley told his squad leader. "Try to stay alive, Gray Fox. We'll get through this thing." "You're a good man, Solid Snake," Gray Fox whispered softly. "If anybody can succeed in this mission, it's you." The squad leader reached inside a pocket. "One last thing," he said. "Take these goggles. They're infrared. There are laser traps on some of the floors. You can see them with these goggles." Solid Snake left Gray Fox lying on the floor of the room and closed the door behind him, making a mental note of the layout so that he could find the squad leader later, if there was a later. Without even knowing what level he was on, or what building, Justin Haley resumed his search of Outer Heaven, still looking for the radio, for a weapon, and for clues to Metal Gear.